Am I the antagonist for how I acted around my nephews during a flight? Last week, I was on a flight with my family for vacation. It was a 10-hour flight. Some of the family members on the flight include my husband, our kids, my parents, and my sister Michelle. Michelle has 2 boys with her husband. Her 2 boys are Herbert and Denver. Herbert also has a boyfriend, Mickey. Due to how we bought the tickets, I was sitting right ahead of Herbert, Mickey, and Denver, while my sister was multiple rows ahead of us. For most of the flight, Denver was just reading a book he had got that was some autobiography of some baseball player he likes. He was also playing some baseball game on the Nintendo DS. Herbert and Mickey were talking to each other during the flight. Sometimes I'd chime in with their conversations. This was going fine at the beginning of the flight. Eventually, Denver had put his stuff down and started talking with me, Herbert and Mickey. Herbert and Mickey were talking about their relationship. I asked Denver if there was anyone he liked, and he mentioned a girl. He then started talking about how one of the boys on his baseball team that he's friends with said he was asexual. When that happened, Mickey and Herbert started to say stuff that annoyed Denver. First, they said that his asexual friend was just looking for attention and that asexuals are trying to take over the community. I tried stopping the boys, but they wouldn't. Herbert then started complaining about a transgender boy that Denver is friends with, mocking him for how he looks and sounds. I told him to stop, but he wouldn't. Herbert and Mickey then said that Denver was a weakling for getting upset and suggested the reason I was upset was that I was probably menstruating. At this point, I started to scold, but not yell, at them, saying that if they keep running their mouths, they will get fired one day from a job, and that I wouldn't feel pity for them. I told Herbert I would be telling Michelle about this, and he told me to go ahead. Once we landed, got our suitcases, and were getting ready to get to the hotel, I had told Michelle about what happened. She just laughed and said boys will be boys. I asked what she meant by this, and learned that Herbert and Mickey had recently got in trouble multiple times at school for saying mean things to other students, including minorities and some girls. She told me that Herbert and Mickey will be fine and how people said worse when we were in high school and they have jobs. She said I should just worry about my own kids and accused me of trying to usurp her authority and said I was acting like an a-hole. It is clear that Herbert and Mickey were engaging in bullying behavior towards Denver and his friends during the flight. As an adult and a family member, it was appropriate for you to step in and try to stop the bullying. It is concerning that Michelle dismissed their behavior and laughed it off, especially considering their previous incidents at school. It is important to address bullying and promote a safe and respectful environment for everyone, regardless of age or setting. Your concerns were valid, and you were trying to protect Denver and ensure that he is not subjected to bullying. Michelle's reaction and accusation of you trying to usurp her authority were unwarranted. Am I the antagonist for not acting supportive of my 23F boyfriend, 25M, going back to school? My boyfriend was recently promoted to general manager at the restaurant chain he works for and has been dealing with the opening of a new location. He has been working long hours and experiencing a lot of stress, but things are finally starting to calm down. When I met him, he was open about having made poor decisions in the past that resulted in approximately $10,000 in credit card debt. At the time, he was focused on working a lot so he could eliminate his debt and start anew. His previous job, prior to the promotion, wasn't something he was extremely passionate about, but he was skilled at it and found it tolerable. His true passion lies in esports, and he has always desired to be a streamer, content creator. Lately, he has become fixated on the idea of returning to college. He has previously attended college twice, but dropped out on both occasions due to lack of academic drive and inability to keep up with his work. His primary motivation to go back is to pursue competitive esports. The college he used to attend has a Call of Duty (COD) team that he was a part of when he was there before. He prioritized this over his studies, which contributed to his decision to drop out. Additionally, he discovered that the college now offers a degree in esports management, which aligns with his interests. I am feeling conflicted because, as his partner, I naturally want him to achieve his dreams and find happiness, and I believe I should support him. However, based on past patterns and practical challenges, this seems like an extremely unwise idea to me. Firstly, it would be highly difficult for him to balance his job, school, being on the team, and spending time with me, his friends. This would require him to reduce his work hours, ultimately resulting in a demotion. Considering he already has limited disposable income and is still paying off debts, it doesn't make sense to have lower pay and fewer hours, especially when he would also incur expenses from attending school. He would need to be extremely focused and organized to manage his daily schedule, but he doesn't possess the type A personality that is suited to that. I have witnessed him go through this cycle many times, where he becomes excited about a new self-improvement plan only to give up shortly after. He has dropped out of college twice before. He also briefly enrolled in online school but didn't continue with it. He has attempted 2 separate independent programs to gain IT certification but lost interest in both. At different points, he has resolved to give up soda, floss daily, and exercise daily, but he no longer follows through with any of those habits. He enters into these endeavors with unwavering optimism, but quickly loses motivation. I have seen no evidence to suggest that this time will be any different. If anything, it appears more challenging given the additional responsibilities he now has to manage. He wants me to simply support him and have faith, and I feel guilty, but I can only envision this leading to more debt for him. Am I the asshole? It's understandable that you are feeling conflicted in this situation. While you want to support your boyfriend and his dreams, it is important to consider the past patterns and the realistic challenges that may arise if he pursues going back to college for esports management. Given his history of dropping out of college and inconsistency with previous goals, it is reasonable for you to be concerned about his ability to stay focused and committed to this new endeavor. Additionally, the financial implications of reducing his work hours and taking on the expenses of school while still paying off existing debts could lead to further financial strain. It is not unfair for you to express your concerns and reservations about the situation. It is essential to have open and honest communication with your partner. Express your support for his dreams, but also emphasize the need for careful planning, considering the pros and cons, and ensuring that he has a solid plan in place before making such a significant decision. Ultimately, the decision is his to make, but it is crucial to approach it with realistic expectations and a strong understanding of the potential challenges ahead. Am I the antagonist for not giving kids my spot? My husband and I recently went to a metal concert that I got tickets for as a birthday present. All of the bands were really heavy and had explicit ratings. The concert had a large mosh pit and was held in a venue that served hard liquor. Being a planner, we arrived early to grab dinner, secure a good spot in line, and find a prime spot near the stage. We ended up finding a great area on the side that overlooked the pit, right by the rail, so nobody was obstructing our view. About an hour and a half into the show, after the first two opening acts, a couple and their 3 young children showed up behind us, discussing how they should find better spots and complaining about being late. All of the kids looked to be under the age of 9, with one even being small enough to be carried on the man's shoulders. Sure enough, after glancing at my husband and me for a while, the man approached us and the people next to us, asking if we would move so that his 3 young children could see the band. The couple next to us agreed, but when the man looked at me, I politely explained that I wasn't comfortable moving because I had arrived early to secure this good spot specifically for the headlining band. To my surprise, he was taken aback and began to raise his voice. He asked me if I was really refusing to move for his children, emphasizing that they loved the band and pleading with me to reconsider. I responded by apologizing and reiterating that I had paid for my tickets, arrived on time, and wanted to enjoy a good view. He continued to argue with me, and at that point my husband offered to create some space on his side of the railing, although it was quite tight. The 3 kids ended up sitting on the floor, which made us very nervous, as my husband is a big man and any accidental contact with them could result in serious injury. To reassure everyone that we weren't encroaching on their space, my husband placed his hand on the rail. As the third opening act took the stage, the kids began to push against my husband more forcefully. The man even put one of the kids on his shoulders. At one point, I overheard the man whispering to the child, telling them to keep pushing forward. Gradually, they even started pushing my husband, which then caused him to bump into me, prompting the man to shout, "Why are you pushing into us, big man?" Remaining calm, my husband explained that he hadn't moved and pointed at his hand on the rail, demonstrating that he was maintaining a barrier. Nonetheless, the man grew increasingly confrontational while his partner attempted to calm him down. I must admit that I became heated and told him to back off. He responded by saying he didn't want to fight in front of the kids, to which I retorted, "You shouldn't have brought them here in the first place." I also expressed concern about their safety, given that they were on the floor. The man's wife kept trying to divert his attention from us, but he persisted. Eventually, I decided to seek help from security. When security arrived, the man continued to argue, but they eventually relocated them to the other side of the venue, closer to the stage. Am I the asshole? You are not the asshole in this situation. You arrived early to secure a good spot for the concert, which is completely reasonable. The other couple showed up late with 3 small children, which was not appropriate for a heavy, explicit metal concert with a large mosh pit and hard liquor being served. You explained politely that you were not comfortable moving as you had planned and paid for your tickets to have a good view. You even made an effort to accommodate them by offering some room on your husband's side. However, their behavior, especially pushing the kids against your husband and escalating the situation, was unacceptable. Your concerns about the safety of the children, given the nature of the concert and their position on the floor, were valid. It was responsible of you to involve security to address the situation and ensure everyone's safety. Overall, you prioritized your own enjoyment and safety while considering the well-being of the children. You made reasonable decisions and handled the situation appropriately, making you not the asshole in this scenario. Am I the antagonist for refusing to help my mother, who goes out of her way to serve my shitty aunt? I am 21 years old and I live in a household where we have traditional values. Like everyone else, I'm not a fan of doing house chores. However, when necessary, I will help my mother, who is 50 years old, diligently. Since my mother is old, I try my best not to show my contempt when she frequently asks me for help, while not even bothering to ask my 23-year-old brother for assistance. It is normal in my country for all four of us to live together. They don't seem to consider the fact that I am currently pursuing a master's degree and have a lot of studying to do. Recently, my uncle, who is married to my father's sister, passed away. My aunt, who is 70 years old, now lives alone. She has a daughter named Nina who resides with her own family just a few miles away. It is expected that Nina should take care of her mother. However, Nina's mother-in-law and husband don't want my aunt staying with them. Fair enough, but shouldn't it still be Nina's responsibility to visit her mom regularly and take care of her? My mother goes out of her way to visit my aunt whenever she calls her. The distance between our homes is quite far, taking around 2 hours to travel. Even for minor leg pain or a sprain, my aunt cries and asks my mother to take her to the nearby hospital, even though she could easily take a taxi herself. And my mother goes every time. While my mother is away, I am left to clean the house, do the laundry, wash the dishes, cook dinner, and go to the market, all after coming home from college. Meanwhile, my dad and brother don't lift a finger. Almost 20 years ago, there was a major dispute over property between my father and his siblings. During this time, they hurled ugly words at my father, mother, and us. My brother and I were 4 and 6 years old at the time, and even threatened to kick us out of the house. We ended up cutting off contact with all of them for a long time. It was only 5 years ago that they somehow had to interact with each other again. Since my dad doesn't have many friends or other relatives, seeing his family after such a long time made him emotional, causing him to forgive them and be on speaking terms. Over these 5 years, they have grown close. I have always held a deep hatred for them, but since we don't spend much time together, it hasn't affected me much. Now, with all of this happening, I have repeatedly expressed to my mother how it is affecting me negatively. She goes out of her way to help my aunt, who refuses to ask Nina for help so as not to disturb her. At the end of the day, I don't mind who my mother chooses to help, but when she is not here, I am the one stuck with all the work, and it is extremely exhausting. I have also been struggling with borderline personality disorder for a long time, and everything happening in my home is making me extremely angry. I have reached my breaking point. For the past 2 days, I have stopped doing any chores. I have stopped cleaning the home, going to the market, and cooking dinner. I simply close my door and focus on studying. As a result, my mother has come home exhausted and has had to do everything herself. I don't think she deserves this, but I feel like I have no other choice. Am I the jerk for refusing to help my mother? It is completely understandable and valid for you to feel frustrated and overwhelmed with the current situation in your household. You are already assisting your mother with chores and helping out, so it is unfair for your father and brother to not contribute their fair share. Additionally, it is also unfair for your aunt to rely solely on your mother for assistance when she has a daughter who should be taking care of her. Taking a stand by refusing to do the chores for a couple of days may not be the most effective approach, as it puts additional burden on your mother who is already exhausted. However, it does bring attention to the issue and highlights the unfairness of the situation. Rather than completely refusing to help, it would be better to have an open and honest conversation with your mother about how this is affecting you, and come up with a solution that involves everyone in the household taking responsibility for their share of the chores. It is important to take care of yourself and your mental health, especially considering your struggle with BPD. Communicating your frustrations and finding a fair solution can help alleviate some of the stress you are experiencing. Am I the antagonist for refusing to let my son attend sister-in-law's wedding? I am not white. My husband is. We have 2 kids, and this conflict revolves around our oldest child, Jack, who is 5 years old. My husband has a half-sister named Anne, who is 23 years old, but they are not very close. However, Anne gets along well with Jack. She sometimes offers to take him on outings as an aunt-nephew bonding experience, and I trust her, so I allow it. They have a great relationship and Jack adores her. Anne is getting married in a couple of weeks and we were all invited. Unfortunately, my husband cannot take time off from work and my mother will be visiting during that weekend, so we won't be able to attend. Anne asked if Jack could at least come to the wedding and she and my mother-in-law would watch over him. I was hesitant initially, but Anne and my mother-in-law assured me that there was no need to worry. After some consideration, I agreed to let Jack go. However, Anne later informed me that her father will be attending the wedding. This surprised me since she hasn't had contact with him for years, but they reconnected for her wedding. I personally have a negative opinion of her father because he's an extremely racist person who strongly believes in his discriminatory beliefs. He is easily swayed by certain types of media, as my husband showed me his outrageous Facebook posts even before we knew he would be at the wedding. His posts involved making generalizations about groups of people and justifying terrible acts solely based on someone's skin color or race. I told Anne that I'm uncertain if I want my son to attend anymore. She understood my concern and assured me that her father wouldn't even be able to tell that Jack isn't fully white, so there was nothing to worry about. While it's true that Jack appears to be white, given the current climate, I refuse to take any risks. Jack sometimes speaks my language, and he isn't fully aware yet that he needs to be cautious around certain individuals. Anne became upset and said nothing would happen, accusing me of being overly paranoid. She even compared my paranoia to her father's beliefs. She urged me to consider the rationality that the venue is a public place filled with people. I apologized to Anne but explained that I couldn't let Jack attend. She started shouting at me, claiming that I was ruining her wedding. She wanted to share the day with everyone she loves, including Jack, and felt that I was ruining it with my unwarranted concern. It seemed like she started crying before abruptly hanging up. Later, my mother-in-law called me and insisted that nothing would happen to Jack. She asked me to get over it for Anne's happiness. However, I remained firm in my decision and said no. This upset my mother-in-law, who accused me of breaking Anne's heart. Though I do feel guilty and acknowledge that I may be overly paranoid, I still believe it's not worth the risk. My husband was initially hesitant, but ultimately agreed with the decision, understanding that we can't take any chances. You're not being paranoid or unreasonable in your concerns for the safety and well-being of your son. It is absolutely valid to be cautious, especially given the current climate and the potential harm that could come from exposing your child to someone who holds racist beliefs. You have the right to protect your child and make decisions based on what you believe is best for their safety. It is unfortunate that Anne and your mother-in-law are not empathetic to your concerns, and instead are pressuring you to go against your judgment. Your son's well-being should always be your priority, and you have made a difficult but ultimately responsible decision. Stick to your instincts and don't allow others to guilt-trip you into compromising your child's safety. Am I the antagonist for taking my neighbor's clothes out of the dryer so I could use it? Okay, so first I would like to give a little context. I, 21-year-old female, live in an apartment with my boyfriend, 21-year-old male, and two of our friends, both 21-year-old males and a 19-year-old female. Our specific building has 2 floors with 4 apartments on each floor, each apartment having 2 bedrooms, and there is also a basement. The basement holds the storage units as well as only 1 washer and 1 dryer for the entire building. Our building's basement connects to the second building's basement through the storage room, so we can access the other building's laundry room if needed, because that building has more washers and dryers. On to the story. By the way, this happened a few weeks ago, but there was something else that happened today that brought it up again. My boyfriend and I went down to start our laundry and saw that our building's washer and dryer were being used. So we went over to the other building's laundry room where we found the dryers being used, but the washers were free, so we put our laundry in the washers. We instantly set a timer on one of our phones so we would know when to come down to switch our clothes over. At this point, the dryers had roughly 15 minutes left on them, and the washers take 30 minutes. As soon as our timer went off, we made our way over there to switch our clothes. None of the dryers were empty, even though they had been done for at least 15 minutes. My boyfriend and I waited for another 10 minutes because we like to give people the benefit of the doubt. So at this point, it had been at least 25 minutes, and there was no one coming to get the clothes from the dryer. I decided to take this person's clothes out of one of the dryers and nicely place the pile on the folding table. My boyfriend and I put our clothes in the dryer, set a timer for 1 hour, and went back upstairs. When the timer went off, my boyfriend was in the middle of a game with our roommate, so I went alone to get the clothes. This woman was sitting on the stairs outside the laundry room waiting for me. She said, "I just wanted to say that it's very disrespectful to move someone's clothes. I have no idea where your hands have been, and frankly, it's disgusting." I calmly responded to her with, "It's disrespectful to leave your clothes in a community dryer for so long when you know that other people who live here need to use the machines too. I didn't want to touch your clothes, especially those nasty stained thongs, but I also didn't want to wait with wet clothes that can collect mildew." She blew up at me, called me all sorts of names, and swore at me. At that point, I had been gone from my apartment for way longer than I should have, so my boyfriend came down and asked her if there was a problem. She continued going off on me and him and then said she felt threatened by his presence because he's so tall, 6'4". Neither me or my boyfriend ever yelled at her, even though she was berating us. I talked to some of my friends that don't live here about the situation, and they think I'm in the wrong for moving her clothes, and they think I should have just waited for her. Am I the antagonist? You are not in the wrong for moving her clothes. It is common courtesy to remove your laundry promptly from shared machines in order to allow others to use them. You and your boyfriend waited for a considerable amount of time before taking action, and it is understandable that you did not want to keep your wet clothes waiting, which could lead to mildew. Additionally, it is rude for her to berate and swear at you for simply attempting to use the laundry facility like everyone else. Your response to her was calm and reasonable, and you did not escalate the situation. Her mentioning feeling threatened by your boyfriend's presence based solely on his height is unfair and uncalled for. Your friends who believe you should have waited for her might not fully understand the inconvenience and frustration caused by someone monopolizing shared facilities. Thanks for watching. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications so you never miss a video. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist in the description.